Welcome to Carl DeGregorio's Session65. Let me take these bad boys off. I get too much of a reflection. That's kind of a look. You know what I'm saying? Talk about the capitulation to age, if you will. 65. It's a demarcating number for I guess retirement age. I think it's up to 67. I think they're trying to push it to 72. I don't really know. I think about that very little because my my late bloomer status has me thinking that if you are lucky and blessed, and already am, and all that stuff, you know, there is some cool stuff for an actor and a creative person after that age, and if you're one of the lucky ones, and you have to live in that, and that was the point anyway. If you were lucky enough to go with a passion for your career, you got to keep hold of it, and enrich yourself as you get further along. So 65, and that is still an infant number in the realm of how these things take off, how these things become profitable or well viewed, or ultimately what the hope is that it helps, a community is formed in some way. And, you know, the funny thing about being here, trying to connect digitally, is that obviously we want more personal, in the flesh connection, if you can get it. And that's such a weird if, and it does make you feel a bit manipulated, that the things, and it's an overrated take these days. But I do, you know, there is this Generation X meme going around about how we were the last ones to blah, blah, blah. And it's like a humble brag about being born, which has more to do with your parents' hopes, dreams, and passion for one another than it does for anything you do. So for you to brag about being Gen X and to know that your children are, you know, growing up in this hellscape, if that's how you want to see it, and that the phone has changed everything, you have to think that that's not the flex you think it is. It's kind of a dickish thing. And yet I am grateful for the way I grew up because of, again, things out that I had nothing to do with, like a good selection of a hometown, a good selection of a lot of things working in our favor in the 80s and the 70s and 80s that worked out for me. A good school system. It's where I found my love for theater. It was still a analog world, you know, where you know, you had to mail headshots to people, and where word of mouth was the only way you know, I can't imagine myself in high school, you know, playing in the lead in something and having an Instagram page. I would have been on fire, you know. But the problem is that incubation period I got was like outside of the all-seeing eye, and some of that is lucky, and some of that is you know, happenstance, obviously. But I guess anybody would lament their loss of youth, but, you know, I have watched a lot of younger people reacting to videos, songs and stuff, and there's one in particular, this Ashley Reacts. She's very charming, very she's got a shtick. She's a reaction video person. She's very charming. She clicks a pen when she likes the song, and it's great when she loves it right off the bat. And they're all songs from my era, and so they're all new to her, or some are new to her, and it warms your heart, and that's why people are addicted to these reaction videos. But she at least has, from her point, it's not for me to say, it's for them to say, right? That generation, she goes, you know, you guys had it good in the 80s and the 90s. The way the songs were written, the way the dudes sang in the rain, you know what I mean? And, you know, the hangouts and the mall and all this stuff, it was a simpler time. We didn't say that about like the 40s 50s, 40s, maybe the 60s is start, I guess. And I think the dividing line might be television. It might be rock and roll. You know, I know the modern age starts somewhere in the 1900s, right? When they say the modern era, but you know, 70s on, I think, is where we have more in common with the three generations. I think Z is starting to get away from us because of these technological developments, I suppose. But it's nice to hear someone of the present, you know, youth generation saying, man, you guys had it good. And I think what the message there is, we can put some of this stuff back in. And maybe that's, you know, how I see it. You know, and then you slide into the comments and you see people just going off about how good they had it. How's it going for you today? Because that's all really it is. And I'm trying to, I guess, flip the script, you know, to live in the idea that it's better today than it was yesterday, even with the great 80s and all that stuff being the case. And what it winds up being is as you get older, I suppose, and you see the way art and commerce, you know, they're not letting the art through anymore. And the commerce of the single, you know, the beauty of the analog era, or even the compact disc era, which would be technically a digital format, but it was physical media, but it was digital on the disc, right? The laser disc, this compact disc. I don't know if you knew this, but Springsteen's Born in the USA is it Born in the USA? One of Springsteen's albums, I'm pretty sure it's Born in the USA, was the first mass-produced CD, which is awesome for a Bruce fan, but also it's sort of interesting that the guy whose flannel shirt did a really bare bones raw record of Nebraska would be the guy, you know, leading the charge with the CD. But I also think that he doesn't have much to say about that. That's where the industry was going. It was just he was the hot hand at the time, and they knew they were going to sell him. But, you know, you had to get a CD player, and it was that whole thing. And then there's that meme about Gen X. Is the reason we're the coolest generation is we had to change from albums to cassettes, and then from cassettes to fucking CDs, and then from CDs to fucking streaming. That's why we're pissed. We had, you know, and it's true, you know. But it's ever been the case, I guess, and I guess your abilities to avoid that shit or to live your own way. Obviously, you could get off the grid as best you can. I don't know how to do that. I don't have the requisite skills. Maybe I should develop them. I like being in cities. My university was urban. The campus was urban. I grew up in suburban areas. I always wanted to be in New York, or I wound up being in LA. I'm not a country guy, although I understand the appeal. I've ruled out a lot of things based on maybe a limited view. And I guess at 65 episodes, and, you know, with that looking back, I don't want to look back, but I do want to look forward. But I also have to understand the limiting views I had about what was possible. Have me where I am today, good or bad. Good and bad, I shouldn't say or, but good and bad. There's a lot of stuff I did right, I suppose, and a lot of stuff I did wrong. And I want to do more right, and I want to do more, I don't know. The idea of changing a pattern, first you have to recognize the pattern. And my pattern, what if, I guess the big what if for me is, what if I start thinking of possibility rather than shit falling apart? And where did the shit falling apart attitude, is that human? Is that singular to me? Is that an old record playing from a ancestor I don't even know? Or is that our setting, and then all the equipping ourselves? We're not born bench pressing 225, but we can get up to 225. Is my work as an artist, as a human, to think about things going good as opposed to going bad, and practicing until I'm putting up 225 on the bench emotionally, projecting into the future positively rather than negatively. A lot of what happens is when you get into the notion of being intellectual or smart or bookish or whatever, that a lot of the takes you will have are based on, well, an intelligent person understands all this shit, and somehow it's anti-intellectual to be peppy, to be with spirit, spunk. There's a quote that I didn't know. I when I wrote my book, I had a friend who is a PhD in English and teaches writing at the college level. I asked them kindly to basically give me a proofread / sort of I don't want to say editorial read, but like a read, proofreading. Just, I was willing to I just wanted a person who kind of knew me and I had access to, and I put them on the spot, and they read the book, and did a pretty good sort of kind enough to break down an email with some input and some not a lot of changes, but some changes. But one of the lines just plucked out of this 100,000 words. She plucked out a sentence that by then I wasn't running with, because I just thought it was in there. But it was the sentence is now sort of my mantra quip, and it's, on my YouTube channel, it's my quote, and I quote myself like I'm fucking Marcus Aurelius. You know what I'm saying? Like I put my own dash, Carl DeGregorio. Oh, really? He said that? Yes, he did, because I'm the one typing it. But the quote is, nothing enrages the disgruntled more than enthusiasm. It's a pretty cool line. Nothing enrages the disgruntled more than enthusiasm. And it refers to a scene in my life where I was in a movie. It wound up airing on Lifetime, but it started out as like an independent film. And the star was Ray Liotta, rest in peace. And I was late to I was a day scene. I had 3 days in town, but 1 day on set. And it was shot in Iowa, because much like right now, what's happening in Texas, what's happening in Oklahoma, what was happening in Pittsburgh, Asheville, North Carolina, these small markets pop up. New Jersey's going to be the next one. These small markets out of state, out of New York and LA markets, offer tax incentives, and that makes you can save your budget and put your budget on camera rather than in the pockets of the crews or the government, the localities. So you can save money by shooting in Iowa. At this point, it was Iowa where we went. It's really cold in Iowa. I thought the Midwest was, it's freezing cold. It was a winter shoot. I had a job. I was flown in, and just from the shuttling, they pick you up and they take you to the hotel and all this. They had switched to night shifts. I was close to the second, maybe there's a week left. I was at the end of production, and these people were battered and bruised, and they weren't feeling it anymore. And I was in the car, like, this was my first film, and there was a famous dude in the film, and I knew that, this was what I wanted to do, and I was doing it, and I got per diem, and I got to, be in Iowa. Iowa might as well have been going to France. It was out of town. It was being treated like a professional actor out in the world. It was exciting for me, and so I was the enthusiastic one, and the disgruntled were the burnt out crew who were from Canada, and it was winter, and it was gray, and it was night shoots, and I'm like, and nobody wants to party, and nobody wants to kick it with me because I'm a day player. And that that's where I wrote the line that I'm in there, and then I said nothing enrages the disgruntled more than enthusiasm, because I was like, hey guys, and they're all like, fuck this guy. But I say that because and one reason the quote is also applicable to me in the converse, meaning I've been the disgruntled, often been the disgruntled. And so when somebody comes in to some kind of system or some kind of workplace or some kind of, and they want to be like, all right, guys, you have these fucking meetings before a shift, and they're like, let's go get him, man. You're just like, shut the fuck up, and that disgruntled rage comes out because these people are trying to change a dysfunctional dynamic with their enthusiasm. And so I put the quote up because it was pointed out to me that was a great line, and it seems to be like a positive thinking douchey quote to make me sound like I'm gonna be the next Tony Robbins or some shit like that. But nothing enrages the disgruntled more than enthusiasm. There was a time I was working at a place in New York called the Campbell Apartment. I think I've talked about it before. It was a Venetian palazzo that this guy Campbell, it wasn't Joseph Campbell, it was somebody Campbell. He was the financier. He worked hand in hand with Vanderbilt. He's the guy who basically got the funds going for Grand Central Station. And so he had this pied-à-terre, which is this giant room, 2-level room with all kinds of Venetian beams, and it's very fancy, and it was really his office, but they call it the Campbell Apartment. And somebody found out through when they kind of did a refurbish on Grand Central Station, this entrepreneur dude found this space and he rented it, and it was fancy as fuck, and I worked there. But I had just finished a run of my play. I had a 3-week run of my play in New York City, and it was probably, I was doing at least 4 weeks of rehearsal and working, and then when the show had to go up, I was like, I can't be bartending and dealing with this shit, and I didn't have nights off. So I had to go back to work, and it was one of the sadder feelings of it's like have you ever seen those movies where the dude gets rearrested on a fucking parole violation and he walks back in? The sunken feeling I had after having been acting for 3 weeks in my own show that I wrote, and walking into a fucking meeting for a bar job was really a sunken feeling. And it was also insult to injury was there was a waitress, cocktail waitress, a very, very attractive woman. Her dad was one of these guys, one of these motivational guys, like a best-selling motivational guy. And the fucking manager of this place was like, would your dad, he basically threw us a freebie, to give us a seminar that nobody fucking wanted, to come into this bar job and do his life is what you make it, and let's get and da, 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 da. And I had just had this run and it didn't make me famous, and it didn't put money in my pocket. It was a financial I don't think we broke even, and so it was a triumph of my feeling for my art, and the people that did see it were enthusiastic, and it kind of jettisoned me to LA because I had some momentum in my energy, at least. And then I had to go back to this bar job and sit and listen to this motivational speaker, and I had to be cool because I knew his daughter, and it was just a setup, and he was going around the room and making people say shit, and I was just like, fuck this. And I think she had kindly gave him a little pregame because I was saying something. He goes, I understand that you recently just did say, he had been briefed about me, maybe to leave me alone, to not make me the example. And so I was in a miserable place, as far as my level of enthusiasm versus my level of disgruntlement. And he could sense that, but he kind of gave me a pass because he knew I had put everything I had into this thing. But he was trying to make people care about this bar job and do his his transformation. And it was brutal. And then there was a new dude who had just joined the bar team, and it's right before I left New York for LA anyway. But this guy was a weirdo. and he had like a real stone face and like tall and talk like this, and he literally, like, when the guy got to him to do his like sort of hands-on, healing, positive thinking thing, the guy thinks he's gonna sort of cock block it with his own spin on self-realization or self-help. He said, how you do anything is how you do everything, is what I believe. And the guy's like, oh, great. So he had a foil in the crowd. He passed by me. And when he said it, I was just like, fuck, this guy if he's kissing up, it's like, I guess he was week one of his job. I guess he had to make, that's the painful thing about a new job, is you can't be acerbic. You have to pretend to care. And this guy said, how you do anything is how you do everything. And it's true. And that's the point, right? Like, I was not happy. I was not in a good place. I was, doing what I had to do, and I had to live with that. But I was a disgruntled person because I had to come back to reality. And so that quote, nothing enrages the disgruntled more than enthusiasm, is true. And enthusiasm is a very underrated trait. It's just when it's forced or fake enthusiasm, I guess, or when you're trying to make other people get hyped. If you're not a coach, if you're not, I guess, a leader, like, it's hard to do. But it's nice to see, and to be honest with you, I'm in a better place than I probably ever was even then, and that's when I was leaner and meaner and younger and stronger, and I had a bad attitude because I was identifying with the disgruntled in my quote more than with the enthusiastic person. And and that's part of what I am venturing to do, is to quote live by my quote, annotate it over and over and over on the internet so that it somehow sticks to me as something that's attributable to me, and to actually remember, and behind me, I don't know if you noticed, but behind me are, during the lockdown, we had a lot of time on our hands, so everybody was doing arts and crafts at home or some shit, and so I framed a lot of stuff, and you can't really see it, but the paycheck for that movie that the quote comes from is right here above my diploma from CMU, and up to the this way is that on top of this long poster is the flyer for my play in New York. That was right around the time of this bullshit staff meeting at a bar job, right after the run of it. Then the play below is an example of it was the poster and the artwork for a play I did when I moved to Florida for about a year. And I have all that stuff up there out, and then there's below is a picture of my book that I brought with me. I had a galley copy, I guess. I brought that with me to my first trip to Italy, and I started sticking it in front of things, and it was my own sort of guerrilla campaign to promote the book, was to have the book show up at famous places in Italy, and I even snuck it on the shelf at a bookstore in Italy, and and then perception is reality, right? People are like, congratulations. I'm like, I literally just cock-blocked this picture. I literally horned it in, and I stole a picture of I started sticking it on bookshelves and stuff. But it dawned on me that maybe this was just a way to decorate a wall. It was, some kind of project. And then I realized that, and it is not glory days, and maybe it is, but it's the realm of what's possible. And the things I always worry about in times of doubt are, is it ever going to work out? And these are a few examples of it working out. The play in Florida was, I was in a predicament, and my brother kind of bailed me out, said, come down here and live with me and his wife, and I lived there. And when I got to the town, within a few weeks of being there, they had an equity theater. I ran down there to audition for something. I did a monologue off the rip, because I've always had those on lock. I ripped this monologue. I was 6'2", lean, mean, just in from New York. I had my resume. I had, the good school on it. They knew right away. I didn't get that part, but they said, we have a Shakespeare in the Park series in the spring, and we'd love to have you for that. So like it was an example of the thing I'm worried about now is I don't know my day-to-day future is will I be able to, and it's always that bridge of support, or that bridge of faith that if I had stuck with a little longer, perhaps something would have paid off, and it did. And they're up on the wall because these are examples of, even in spite of my bad attitude, in spite of my disgruntlement, that these things did happen. And then in the middle is a movie poster that represents the possible. And so it's I guess I have been dream boarding sort of with my own stuff and visual, but those are just past things. And then the dream board thing I'm doing now is future and wants and needs and stuff like that. And so as I quote myself, which is the height of narcissism and the height of self-regard, that nothing enrages the disgruntled more than enthusiasm, is let me not stop being the happy-go-lucky day player that showed up on a set of bruised and battered Canadian crew, craftspeople, and actors that were tired of this, hoping this thing would wrap. I was a pig in shit, and I shouldn't lose that, and I shouldn't do it to myself. I guess that's the thing that can really hurt you, and that would be my warning for you all too, is that don't be your own, I don't know what the opposite of a naysayer. I guess a cheerleader is be your own cheerleader. Don't be your own naysayer, because that is, that's a flat tire in a mud bog. You know what I mean? That there's not a lot going for you. You're stuck if you're a naysayer to yourself. And and then let somebody fucking talk shit at you, call you a fucking pie in the sky, call you a dreamer, call you a not a realist. Whatever they're going to say, let them do that. But to quote another Mel Robbins, let them, because you can't do it to yourself, because that's the tone that you're sort of setting in your heart, how you talk to yourself. So I'm going to remember that it's not very quotable, but I've always said that, enthusiasm is an underrated trait. And I think you can still commiserate with people because that's a shared lament, but it's when it's really seeping in and you can't rise above. I've been there, and I hope to not be there often, and there's almost nothing you can do, because you're in the wrong spot and you can't get out. It's a tough one, and I just want to try to remember behind me, in front of me, that there's examples of possibility, and then the possibilities are what I put out there. And so on 65, have I reasserted the fact that this is not I'm way too, retirement is not on my horizon, either age-wise or spirit-wise. And they always say beware the aging soldier, right? The old soldier. Because what he had to do to stay alive, you don't want to fuck with that guy. Conversely, I don't know how that relates. I just like that kind of quote. But an actor doesn't retire. He gets more seasoned. He gets more lines in his face. He gets better, and he gets a bigger wellspring of things to draw from. And that's the joke. Even Ethan Hawke even said, I'm still young enough that King Lear is down the road. Willie Loman is down the road. Maybe not. I mean that, the way people look back then, I bet you Lee J. Cobb was probably 46 or something. He played Willie Loman. Is not a dude in his 70s. And that's the other thing. And I gotta remember to we're not folding it up yet, right? We're still rocking, We're gonna keep on rocking in the free world. So thanks for Session65. Let's keep it going and keep the enthusiasm. All right, peace.